thing that sticks out in my mind above everything, and it's how they used the term, or Bradley used it, or it's unclear to the public. It'd be unclear unless you clarified things directly from him. But it was the vehicular traffic all being within earshot throughout the entirety of that time. Now that seems bizarre to me, one, that you would recognize that. Like there's no action going on, but it has to be fairly significant for Brad to remember it. And I mean, that's a lot of traffic. If the car was in earshot the whole time, like he could hear the car running. Or what is it he really meant? But that's how it was portrayed, that the vehicle was within earshot this entire time. And what was taking up his time, meaning Daniel's? What was taking up his time during, and I'm using parentheses, his search, when he was away from the organized search, away from the RCMP, doing his own thing? All of that time needs to be accounted for. Now, the RCMP are way ahead of us on that. But we very rarely discuss this or talk about it. And that's where we need to start discussing. You're certainly not going to believe this asshole. So what was the purpose of being and leaving your communication device? Well, we can answer that for ourselves. We know what we're posing the question. What was the reason he was searching without his communication device? Where did he go? And surely he would be able to account for all of those particular hours. Now, granted, you could probably figure it out, but we don't know when he was back to Garlock Road, where he went. We know that he traveled in on Saturday to pick up the Pipeline Boys, as Mike Demand likes to call them. Chance Lays his dealer. We don't have to incorporate a whole lot of our imaginations into this. And I'm not saying that's what you're doing, Bonza Ozzy. It most certainly would have had to do, and we have to think about it having to do with the bodies themselves. And him, one, probably freaking out, not trusting, and second guessing his initial site, whether that site is to dispose of or just to simply a safe place to keep until he can make it back and go do a better job hiding what would be the bodies. Now, you'd think that there wouldn't be a whole lot of individuals in on that. Yes, Andrew B. Every culvert. I hear you. It would seem to me that the safest place for a person like Daniel to hide a bodies would be of a place that he knows already. And he would spend the majority of that time doing some digging. There's plenty of garbage plastic containers around. He just has to get rid of the evidence until a later date, a later point. And for a person who's trying to protect and get away with the crime, it's very difficult unless you have access to a boat in a deep water harbor to go and be satisfied with your method of disposal, that it's not going to wash up in a shore at some point in time in the next month or so. That's a possibility that he disposed of him in the ocean, but I just can't. It's not my first choice anymore at this point. I'm open to it, although I want more information. But a person like Daniel, to me, he has to, and he would know a good spot where he could just go back and just dig down and dispose of it, or go away from Garlock Road and put 2 small packages in a construction garbage container. These sort of things. Truth and Beyond. He looked scared in his last interview. What particular segment? Cali OG Hip. That loud car, the black Kia Rio, I bet was burned up in Kent's garage fire. Strong possibility. Definitely a strong possibility, considering all of the pieces of shit that he has hanging around there. Could be any one of those could have been in old Kent's garage fire. Absolutely. Probably used Durwood's fucking vodka. Let me borrow that vodka, Durwood. That's the most plausible explanation as far as I'm concerned. But I'm not saying that that's true. I don't have any evidence for that yet, but based upon the behavior of the suspects and the involvement of 2 randos that have no business involving themselves in such a serious situation like this, they have to be tied to this on another level. Mrs. Bartman, he wouldn't have given anyone dignity. It would have been all about Daniel. Well, I think that, yeah. Whatever happened, Janie and Daniel continued to vocalize their disdain and the gaslighting tactics and the disparaging comments that they had, not only would they say them to Malaya, but they're very open about them after the fact. They really don't believe. They're trying to make themselves to believe that they didn't do anything wrong and what they did was justified. If it wasn't for Malaya, they wouldn't have been pushed to the point of carrying out this upon the kids and having to cover up the felonies. Well, Vivalda, I'm interested to know why, in the beginning, Malaya told the responding officers about, maybe it was in response to a question about where else could the kids be, something along those lines, but it's not clear. But she mentioned Barney's River, okay? There's a place where she mentioned Barney's River to the police in that conversation. That would suggest to me, no matter what we don't know, and there's all kinds of things that none of us know yet about that particular back and forth, but it stands out to me because at that time she brought up Barney's River. Now let's just say for a moment that she was being manipulated, we know that she was being manipulated. And the police officer in the moment was picking her brain as to where else she thought, away from Daniel, the kids could be. And it's a piece of information that might be significant. We know he was in that area to pick up chance lays. We know that he frequencies that route because old Danny and Malaya had their first date on Long Beach or Big Beach. You know, that Big Island beach. Mr. Trustworthy. Mister, I've got a fucking answer for everything. Kid's got black eyes. Here we go. And begin. Okay, are we ready? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh. Do you see me? Do you see how affected I am by all of this, girl? I'm affected. Look at me. I can barely keep it together. I would have said the kids must have their boots because they're not there. That could be so, Lori, but he didn't. It's the Genghis Khan of Tweakerville. That's right, Jacqueline. That one made you LOL. It's not like it's not true. I'm not sure how original that is. TM, your horns are showing here along with his eyes of evil. Look it, there it is, the angry face of Danny. That's the type of face that the kids would have seen all of the time. Malaya, look what you're doing to me. Why can't you help out around the house? The guy's bragging about doing all the housework, and the first thing people say is walking in, it's how inhospitable it is. Inhospitable. I'm like Jackie Childs. Kramer's lawyer. That's a tough one to say. Bonanza Aussie, white candy coated gum. That is rectangular. Fake teeth look like pieces of this white candy gum. Oh, I think those are his. I think those are natural. He's a definite candidate for Invisalign. Or they grind them all down to the stumps and just plaster some shit back in your mouth. It's not like you care about a healthy, beautiful smile. It doesn't matter to him. Good on him. Who cares? Janie said she's got to call Malaya because they're outside without shoes on. Yeah. The coats too, she said, though. Right, Lori? First of all, who gives a shit? But she's making it out to seem like it's actually a thing. It's just an opportunity and an example and an admission by Janie on how she abused and fucked with Malaya and everybody in her trailer. You know, could you imagine having to go out to your own fucking place because of how nasty things have gotten in the trailer? She's going out to the RV because it's in no condition. She doesn't even want to live around what the hell is going on, and she's blaming it all on this new relationship. And Daniel's putting the blame back off onto Malaya as well because he doesn't like to be blamed for anything. Nothing's his fault. That's it. That's kind of a typical thing, a pattern that's developed, you will notice. He was going to clean after he did all of his math so he makes sure he never runs low. Beauty comes from the inside, Anita. No, that's just something ugly people say. Okay. That could be true. You're setting yourself up for a good joke. He's probably listening right now, telling the shadow people how mean everyone here is. Oh, fucking shit! Oh, fuck. That's good. A good grandma would just go get their shoes and jackets and help them into them. Exactly. Now she's telling you, like, this is like a Nazi internment camp here, and she's like already giving her testimony on the stand at Nuremberg to all of the reasons that she had to treat them in this particular manner. Well, what the hell was going on in there? Listen, they were tweaking out. They weren't cleaning. They were lazy and abusing one another. It was more one-sided, but the manipulation and the coercion was heavy. She was putting herself through this voluntarily, thinking God knows what. But Dan was doing his own thing away from the family, to the point where he was stopping doing that to come back and deal with the kids and holding it against Malaya, as though that was all of her responsibility plus Meadow. Like, you can tell that she didn't get any help. And you don't even have to hear her, and you know that. Maybe she didn't know any better. That's still not any excuse, we'll say. It's no excuse. Like, I don't want to hear excuses for the negligence that you were putting your children through at this point. You let it exacerbate and get this far. No matter what sad story we come to learn about this.
If you have anything, come out as fast as possible and get it to any detachment or any police service that you have available to get to talk to. And Jack just absolutely loves bugs, darn it.
So it's not very convincing. He's stuttering, he's jumping, and he's twitching nonstop throughout this appearance, as though he was legitimately upset and not just tweaking out. Really, it just sounds like listening to a tweaker in that sense. It's listening to somebody who's high and twitchy.
Dinosaurs, anything like that. But Lily loves girly things, but she also loves doing everything with Jack, bugs. They're like best friends, not just brother and sister.
We've heard a lot about the impact that this is having on the community at large and the family, and it's really important.
They were like best friends, not just brother and sister. Learn when to shut the fuck up, dude. There's nothing tighter. Best friends aren't tighter than brother and sister. You took that analogy and you reversed it. They're not best friends. They're like brother and sister would be the proper use of it. You reverse it, and it takes the meaning away. It takes the meaning away. They weren't just brother and sister. They're like best friends. Don't let that slip by, friends. You're undermining the natural relationship there should be between a brother and a sister. A brother and a sister aren't naturally at odds with one another in a happy household, you fucking moron. They're not just friends. They're like brother and sister. There's a bond there. A blood relationship. It's there, and it says it's spoken a certain way to emphasize a certain point. Talking about strong family bonds. And he fucking says it in the complete opposite way. So what was he really trying to say there? Or was he just trying to look for something to say?
Important that we locate these children and get the information from the scene here and from anyone who might have information about the kids and their habits. So it's
I bet you dollars to donuts that's the cop that fucking told Janie that she was going to arrest her punk ass. And the snide one, the cop that told her and asked her if her dog barks at the chickens as well. This is the cop that was going to tase the hell out of Janie. I'm sure of it.
Really important to have engagement from anyone who knows these kids. We're operating on a search right now to locate them from having wandered. So that's the goal that we're all working towards here. I know that all of the information that has been collected is being looked at carefully by GSAR and by the investigators and the police on scene to ensure that our best practices are followed in order to establish where the searches need to be concentrated and focused.
After nearly 3 weeks and 8 full days of scouring Lansdowne Station, there's still no sign of Lily and Jack Sullivan. Glenn Brown is having a hard time wrapping his head around that. The retired RCMP dog handler of 26 years says it's baffling to him the children